to our guest. Dr. Anshul Abhijit is national spokesperson of the Congress Party. Karan Verma is an author. The BJP declined to be part of this discussion. They said they don't want to, quote unquote, give importance to Rahul Gandhi. But, obviously there's something to talk about there as well, which I will come to. Anshul, first of all, thanks to both of you for your time here on India Today. Anshul, the 3-day discussions as part of the no trust vote happened. Many of the speeches were serious. Rahul Gandhi, the opposition, walked out right before the Prime Minister spoke about Manipur. My question, Anshul, to start with is, is this what it has come to? Is Rahul Gandhi so bereft of political ideas that his criticism now is that the Prime Minister was giggling in Parliament while Manipur is burning? I mean, there was a full speech. There was one by the Home Minister as well. And Rahul Gandhi's complaint now is that the Prime Minister was laughing.
What kind of speech was it, Shiv? All the jeering, the jibes, the laughter, the mockery. I mean, the picture is there in front of you. You can keep making the headlines that you wish. I know there is an insistence in newsrooms to make attractive headlines and all that. But the picture there is in front of you, and it was brought out by Mr. Rahul Gandhi. Then on one hand, you have a state which is after 3.5 months, 3 months still burning. There is deep incompetence on the part of the administration and the chief minister of that particular state who remains there. It's a precious state. It's a fragile state. It's a border state. And it's still burning. There is murderous hostility between two groups. Forget about sharp fault lines being drawn and all that. And on the other hand, you have these cheap jibes and sloganeering by the opposition. You come to the topic. The entire program here was that the Prime Minister breaks his silence on Manipur. You come to the topic after 1.5 hours. Not even that. Cheap sloganeering goes on like a chorus. I don't want to compare it to a kangaroo court. But absolutely shameful. And Shiv, by the way, this term, India is an alliance, and the term that, summoning all his creativity, he's thought of a particular pun on that word. And I can't even get to say it. I can't even get to say it. You think this is the high noon of eloquence by the Prime Minister?
The no trust vote, it was an excellent idea. It was necessary. In my view, the Manipur issue being discussed in Parliament was absolutely necessary. I think the opposition did well in bringing attention to it and forcing a no trust vote. My question is the shifting of goalposts. First, you say the Prime Minister hasn't spoken. Then you say he hasn't spoken enough about Manipur in his speech. Then you say he was giggling. Then you say he started on Manipur too late. Then you say there was too much sloganeering. I mean, first you say he's not speaking. Then you want to direct and edit and shape the quality and complexion of the Prime Minister's speech. It was a big speech. It came a day after the Home Minister provided a very detailed clarification, including the failures of the state government as far as Manipur is concerned. And now you've got Rahul Gandhi, who's beginning to sound, like a frustrated politician, talk about the Prime Minister being shameless and giggling in Parliament. That's bankruptcy.
So, in effect, Shiv, what you're trying to tell us is that in a democracy, the opposition has no right to critique the Prime Minister.
Not at all. Not at all what I'm saying.
Shameless. No, but you are actually, the answers are being demanded of the opposition when it is the government which is in power, and the government's mismanagement has led to what is happening in Manipur.
The mismanagement, the opposition walked out when the Prime Minister was there.
Shiv, irony has died a million billion deaths at this moment when the opposition is being questioned for questioning the Prime Minister and is absolutely
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I wish, what I'm wishing for, Anshul, and I'm right when I say this. What I'm wishing for is that these 3 days were a ruthless, absolutely uninterrupted, unrelenting attack on the government as far as Manipur was concerned. It was scattered. There was so much, of course there was sloganeering on the part of the government. The government was on the mat. The opposition simply didn't do enough. You walked out. You let the government off the hook.
We didn't walk out. We were losing our patience by the end of it. It was 1.5 hours of relentless jibes and mocking and laughter and the Gandhi name. And poor A.O. Hume was brought out of the woodwork. I mean, for God's sake. I mean, you had
Okay.
enough of this. I mean, it's been so long here. Last time, the Nehru name was brought out. I mean, there is a certain kind of, the Prime Minister must be aware of what his position is. You keep bragging up this about being the largest democracy in the world and he being at the head of it. And this is the kind of tackiness, of kitsch, and of cheapness that you come down to when there are such serious issues at hand. You get down to it. You answer those questions in all seriousness. If you want, look, Shiv, I agree, there is a time for politics. Even the kind of narratives that we've heard, maybe there is a time for it. You can critique it anytime you want. But this was certainly not the time. The Prime Minister, by his speech, lowered the dignity of Parliament, of the opposition, and of democracy on the whole.
Okay, Karan, where do you stand? What did you think of what Rahul Gandhi said today? I personally thought Rahul Gandhi's speech in Parliament, there are many people who say that it had a great deal of empathy, but it lacked gravitas. I think the speech was powerful. It was to the point as far as Manipur was concerned. It was memorable. It provided, certain phrases that people are thinking about all across the country. But today, in my view, and I want to tell you, I'm being fair because I expect that the pressure needs to be kept up on the government. But by talking about giggling and body language and mockery, I mean, that is part of the political language. When you've got two parties in a hostile atmosphere inside Parliament, taking pot shots at each other, that kind of thing is going to happen. But for that to be the thrust by Rahul Gandhi a day after a very serious no trust vote, what did you think, Karan?
Okay, so Shiv, I hope I'm extended the same courtesy and I can speak my mind out. First of all, when Rahul Gandhi says that the Prime Minister was insensitive, I think it's a classic case of the pot calling the kettle black. Look at how Rahul Gandhi started his speech. He started with some cheap jibes at Adani. That is what he started with. And the entire Congress support system there, they were shouting, Sher Aaya, Sher Aaya. And then they were obsessed with the camera not being on Rahul Gandhi. Does that show empathy? Does that show sensitivity? I doubt it shows that. Secondly, he was thoroughly unprepared. Not a single specific detail where he could have cornered the government. You are right. I wanted the government to be questioned. I wanted specifics to be discussed. But he was thoroughly unprepared. Not a word about how the law and order situation broke apart there. Nothing. And this started right from day one. On day one, the Home Minister, Amit Shah, wrote a letter to Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary and Malika Arjun Kharge. Let's discuss this matter threadbare. They stuck to this technicality. They were fixated with the Prime Minister making a statement. Now, what that shows is they wanted the optics of it rather than solutions. Mr. Amit Shah was ready. The Home Minister, the man who's responsible for the internal security, was ready to discuss this matter threadbare. Why did you run away from this? The entire country was disenchanted because we wanted hard questions to be asked of this government. You let them off the hook and you politicized. Did Supriya Sule talk about Manipur in her address? Did Dimpi Yadav, she was discussing the 500 rupee thali or the electricity cuts in Noida. Did Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary make a nuanced statement? He was trying to internationalize the thing and talking about Nirav Modi and God knows what all. So the truth is the opposition squandered a golden opportunity and the Prime Minister and the Home Minister answered it in great detail. They could have countered the Home Minister then and there. They did not do that. And when the Prime Minister spoke about Manipur, look at his response. Dr. Anshul says, we ran out of patience. Is that the hallmark of a great opposition, to run out of patience? I think it's a case of shooting in the foot and then landing up with that injured foot in your mouth. That is what the opposition has done.
Okay, so the opposition's performance, whether they got what they wanted or not, has been debated yesterday and today as well. Karan makes a point. Anshul, you want to take that on? I want to keep it as specific as possible because we're on limited time and Mr. Gandhi held a press conference today. I mean, Rahul Gandhi is talking about body language. I mean, this is a politician who has made headlines in the past for his flippant behavior in Parliament. Sure, he's not the Prime Minister. Sure, it's not the same standard he must be subjected to. He's not the executive. I grant that. But here's a guy who is very casual in Parliament. He's been accused of using Parliament as an extension of his living room during the infamous hug and wink episode. There was that, in my view, very needless flying kiss episode that happened. He's a man who's very casual. He laughs. He, gestures with his thumbs up. And here he is lecturing someone about giggling and being casual in Parliament. Anshul? I'm only saying it because he brought it up.
I'm telling you, Shiv, are you really sure that the opposition needs to be cross-examined after
I
all
don't.
this?
I'm
What
just
has
asking
happened?
because,
No, no,
because that was the thrust of Rahul
similarly,
Gandhi's press conference, Anshul. That was the,
no,
he
no, no,
mentioned it 4 times, not
it's
once,
almost,
not twice, not thrice. 4 times he said shameless Prime Minister is laughing and giggling.
I'll say it another 50 times. I heard that speech. It's my great misfortune that I have to hear him every single time. It's a punishment for me, Chief, that I have to hear him, but he's the Prime Minister of this country. I must latch on to every single word he says. And I'm deeply disappointed every time he says it, with every single statement, with every single comment, his every single falsehood. And that is what has happened in that speech yesterday. And I'll tell you the falsehoods. And the irony, you talk about irony, I already spoke about how irony dies every time he utters this word, Quit India movement. About the word he's coined up, all kinds of leveling, all kinds of baseless charges.
But
I've
Anshul,
said, in all fairness, I've said that there is a time for politics. I have nothing against politics. We're in the game of politics, right? You trade charges, you say all kinds of things, even if they're degraded and cheap. And they're tacky and they're kitsch.
But Anshul, just answer me one question. I hear what you're saying, and what you're saying is entirely reasonable, because there is a place and time for politics and political barbs. There's, why can't they happen in Parliament? And at one level, Rahul Gandhi even talking about body language is totally legitimate. I mean, in this atmosphere, 10 months before elections, that's fair. My question is, was this really just about politics and Modi rather than about Manipur? You had the Home Minister call for a joint resolution on Manipur. You had the Prime Minister talk about Manipur. The opposition walked out before he could talk about Manipur. It gives the public impression that for the opposition, for Rahul Gandhi, for the Congress party, this was not about Manipur. This was not about having a substantive discussion about Manipur, as was stated to be the case with the no trust vote, but about attacking the Prime Minister personally, which is fine, but at least come out and say it then.
Shiv, you're talking about the opposition not bringing Manipur to the forefront. Do tell me.
Not at all. I praise the opposition for doing
it. Just tell me. I'm answering your question, Shiv.
Yes.
I am just saying that if the Prime Minister brings out Manipur for the very reason that we've called him there, because to break his silence on this very important
topic. He should have done it earlier.
Because No, what sense does it make for it to bring out after 1.5 hours? Is that giving it importance? Have you asked that question? Why don't you ask the Prime Minister that question?
We did. We have.
Not bring up
you haven't seen our discussion last night.
Right in the
Anshul, we had a discussion last night where we talked about how the Prime Minister began about Manipur after minute 96. We've discussed it threadbare here. I'm only bringing this up now because of Rahul Gandhi's words. Yeah, finish your point, Anshul.
No, I am just simply saying that the Prime Minister's speech, like all his other speeches, but this makes it particularly so because it was in the floor of this House and it was on such a critical matter at such a critical juncture in our history, was exceedingly distasteful. And I'm using my words very carefully. Actually, I'm not even going ahead and saying what I really think of that speech. I'm marking my words. It was cheap and it was a distasteful speech, and the Prime Minister should have known better as being the head of the biggest democracy in the world.
Karan,
is this at this point?
This is okay. I mean, in politics, this kind of thing goes. But is this a shifting of goalposts? Because, a substantive answer on Manipur did come from the Home Minister. The Prime Minister mentioned it. Now it's about, you started talking about it too late. You should have started from right the beginning. When so many other speeches were about things other than Manipur, now the Prime Minister is being castigated for not starting his speech on Manipur.
I think that's ridiculous. I mean, you can't dictate terms when to speak what. If he would have not spoken about Manipur, that would have been understandable. But he did speak about it. In fact, unfortunately, it's the opposition that walked out when he started speaking about it. Look, the opposition in this entire thing, they had a great opportunity to demand accountability and answers. They have squandered that golden opportunity. And which is why they are not able to stomach this fact that the government, which wanted a discussion on this, they've been let off the hook where they did have an advantage to question it. And even today, you look at this ship, even today they are obsessed with Prime Minister Modi's body language. They are still not asking the hard questions on Manipur. They are obsessed with the Prime Minister making a statement, what kind of body language he has. They are still not coming up with substantial arguments as to why the tension is brewing there. Except for Gaurav Gogoi, who did come up with 2 questions. None of them have come up with anything substantial. Nothing at all. And that
nobody
is what
came with any specific. Nobody from the opposition and not Rahul Gandhi in particular provided any specific points as far as
Correct.
Manipur was concerned. I also want to point out one more paradox, Anshul, with the greatest of respect, is that there were so many people in the opposition, who gave speeches who didn't touch upon Manipur. Gaurav Gogoi started fabulous speech. Let me say it categorically and on record here. Fabulous opening speech that stuck to the Manipur issue. After that, you had a whole bunch of people, including Rahul Gandhi, who spent the first 14 minutes talking about the Bharat Jodo Yatra, etc. Dimple Yadav, Kani Mori, and the others who didn't talk about Manipur. And then you're attacking the Prime Minister, for not talking about Manipur for the first 90 minutes. And this is a day after the Home Minister spent an hour and a half speaking about Manipur and nothing else.
Shiv, when the opposition walked out yesterday, there was not even a whiff of Manipur. We had no idea even Manipur was coming or not. You almost make it sound as if the
That's
Prime Minister,
ridiculous,
you had read the speech
Anshul.
before him. Did you know Manipur was coming? Did you have any idea when Manipur was coming, if at all? How did you have an idea it was coming? Nobody had any idea.
How could anyone have known if it was coming?
And said nothing. When
You
he walked
wanted
out,
the Prime Minister to speak. The Prime Minister was speaking.
No, he wasn't. It was that cheap sloganeering and guarantees about that, I guarantee, hey, I mean, the typical manner in which he says it, which I can't recount. I can't even mimic it. I don't want to. It was terrible. And that is when it walked out. And they said that, listen, what's going on here? And by the way, this is the executive. You have the tyranny of the executive in this country.
We asked them the question yesterday, Anshul. I will send you the link of yesterday's discussion on how we've taken the government to task on not enough answers on day 3 as far as Manipur is concerned. We have done it. I will send you the link. But my question is, if you're talking about, if this issue was at the initiative of the opposition, Rahul Gandhi was leading the charge on day 2, then please explain to me. And believe me, I am not here questioning the opposition. I am simply asking this question because Rahul Gandhi has brought it up. I'm saying, if Rahul Gandhi spoke for 35 minutes, why for the first 14 minutes was he talking about his transformation, about his knee injury, about the Bharat Jodo Yatra? Why didn't he go from start to finish about Manipur? Yes, he was very emphatic in the end, but why wasn't it from start to finish? That's the same thing that the other side will ask you.
Absolutely not. No. The Prime Minister.
Who cares about his self-transformation?
Between the jeering. No, Shiv, let me answer that question. There has been no connect between the Prime Minister's jibe and jeering and jest and laughter and the mockery, and then coming down to Manipur at a time when the opposition was not. Then we had no idea it was coming down. The Rahul Gandhi speech there was about empathy. It was about listening to the people. He was building a ground for coming to Manipur. It had the same tenor. There is absolutely no comparison. You were talking about listening to India and finding solutions. Look, this is the executive. Look, Shiv, this is the executive we are talking about. Who is in power in this country? We're asking questions.
They know the answers.
They know the answers. They have to give the explanations. They have to give point by point what happened and what are their solutions. Why are you putting the opposition in the dock for this? I can't understand.
Definitely not. Definitely not. I'll tell you where some of the anger, I think, reflected from the public is coming from. And this is something that Karan also said. Many in the public were hoping for a much greater level of holding the government accountable as far as Manipur was concerned. And it was a wasted opportunity. At the end of the day, this is a democracy. It's all about politics. Optics, which most people dismiss, I think is extremely important, because ultimately it's the optics that make people go, and vote in addition to everything else. So, Karan, to me, the big takeaways from yesterday are, there were 2 occasions in which Manipur came up majorly. One was when the Home Minister made his big speech. He called for a resolution, a joint resolution by all members of the House. That didn't happen. That was interpreted as the opposition, seeing that as a trap. Then you had the Prime Minister speak about it, but the opposition walked out. It just seems like it was about optics and not about substance. That's what the vote was about.
I think, Shiv, as far as the Home Minister is concerned, I'll give him credit. He has gone to the minutest details of what really transpired. He discussed how he spent 3 days there. The MOS spent 23 days. How 33,000 battalion, the personnel were deployed there, how the secretary was changed, and the entire details. So I don't think we can say the Home Minister shied away from a debate or didn't go into the specifics. He did go into the specifics, unlike Rahul Gandhi. Rahul Gandhi could have asked such tough questions. I mean, people do a much better job on your news shows asking the government some hard questions. But Rahul Gandhi squandered it away. He totally wasted an opportunity when all eyes were on him, by the way. That was his maiden speech after return. Everybody was waiting to hear from him, and he squandered it away, talking about his psychedelic experiences and his knee injury and God knows what all. So let's not paint everyone with the same brush. The Home Minister is the star in the sense that he's come out and said, listen, this is what happened. This is what the history of it has been, how Northeast has been neglected for decades together, how ever since this government took over, for 6 years, there was no curfew, no blockade, nothing till May 3rd. Okay. And yes, what happened on May 3rd was unfortunate. He's owned up that. He said, yes, let's work together towards a peaceful solution. Did they come up with a single solution except for that the CM should resign? What a stupid suggestion. When you are going through turbulent seas, you don't ask the captain to resign. You come up with solutions.
10 months before the elections, one will expect some things like these to happen. But I also want to point out that if the opposition, as part of a no trust vote, has used that platform, and I believe absolutely rightly so, to highlight all of the government's different failures, things that it should be held accountable for, price rise, unemployment, the thali that you're talking about, T.R. Balu talked about certain other things as well. I think that it is a little rich for the opposition to then find fault with the Prime Minister, to use that same platform he's been granted or imposed on him to list his achievements and failures of past governments. That's the way politics works. There can be indignation about it, but remember, 10 months before an election, every opportunity is going to be an election platform. That's how it's going to be. Rahul Gandhi, in my personal view, can never be faulted on lacking empathy, anger, ferociousness as far as these issues is concerned. And hopefully we'll see much more of this on the road to 2024. Anshul and Karan, a pleasure. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being with me here on 5 Live.